You may not be interested in keeping track of 20 different credit cards to try and squeeze the most points out of your spend. And that's where the Venture X and SavorOne come in. The Capital One duo. I was gonna call it the Capital One Bifecta, but apparently this is what a Bifecta is. And I don't think that's what we're going for. Is it? So anyways, in this video, I'm going to cover the value you can get with the Capital One Duo, along with what it's going to cost you, how to actually get it, and I'll have some little Capital One tips and tricks sprinkled throughout. Now for the meat and potatoes of this setup. Exactly which spend categories will these two cards cover, and which categories won't be covered? First of all, the Venture X incentivizes you to book travel through their portal by giving you a significant number of miles when you do so. When you book a hotel or a rental car through Capital One Travel, you're going to earn 10x miles. And when you book a flight through Capital One Travel, you'll earn 5x miles. And you may be saying, well, Josh, they probably jack up the price and give you 5 to 10x miles to make you feel like you're getting a deal, when in reality, you're not. Well, the nice thing about Capital One's travel portal is they have a price match guarantee. So you can confidently book your travel through Capital One, and then if you find a better deal for that booking on another website within 24 hours of your initial booking, Capital One will actually refund you the difference. The Venture X also earns 10x back on Turo bookings, which is a limited time deal that's good through May 16th, 2023. Now, if you're not familiar, Turo is a peer-to-peer car rental service where you can rent a car from John down the street rather than a large company like Hertz or Avis. The nice thing is it allows you to rent some really unique vehicles that may not always be available through the more mainstream rental agencies. Now, with the SavorOne card, when you hitch a ride with Uber or get takeout with Uber Eats, you'll be getting 10x back through November 14th, 2024. And you'll also be getting 8x back on anything that you book through Capital One Entertainment. And simply having access to Capital One Entertainment in itself can actually prove to be pretty valuable. For instance, remember that whole Taylor Swift ticket debacle? Well, Capital One actually had an exclusive pre-sale for her tour where you could have scored tickets before the scalpers flooded Ticketmaster. Now, you'll have access to Capital One Entertainment through both the Venture X and SavorOne cards, but you'll get the elevated 8x miles back on the SavorOne. And to go along with the 10x back on Uber and Uber Eats, Capital One is also giving SavorOne cardholders a complimentary Uber One membership through November 14th, 2024. Now, if you were to go out and purchase an Uber One membership on your own, it would be $9.99 per month. Overall, this is a nice perk to have built into a free credit card like the SavorOne, but I personally don't use Uber often enough to where I would value this perk at the full $9.99 per month. It's simply just not a service I would go out and purchase on my own. The SavorOne will also get you elevated rewards on hotels and rental cars purchased through Capital One Travel, but only at 5x back compared to the Venture X's 10x back. And the SavorOne doesn't offer any elevated rewards on flights booked through Capital One Travel. So the Capital One Duo is also going to get you 3x miles on dining, entertainment, streaming services, and grocery stores through the SavorOne card. Having that elevated earning rate on heavy-hitting food categories like grocery stores and dining can certainly provide a nice value here, especially since these are oftentimes high spend categories for people. Now, entertainment and streaming are going to be hit or miss depending on your particular lifestyle. I know for my wife and I, we spend maybe $30 per month on streaming, and our entertainment spend is relatively low. But if you're someone who is constantly going to concerts, sporting events, amusement parks, zoos, bowling, and so on, then 3x miles can certainly add up. Now, Capital One really hit the nail on the head by naming this card Savor, because not only are you going to savor the food, but you're also going to savor the experiences you have with this card. Maybe that was a little cheesy, but the really nifty thing about the Capital One Duo, the thing I can really appreciate, is the base earning rate is 2x back. And you may be saying, yeah, but what's the big deal? The Amex trifecta and the Chase trifecta both have base earning rates higher than 1x back. But the thing that sets the Capital One Duo apart is you don't need an entirely separate card as your flat rate catch-all card. The entire reason this setup can be a duo and not a trifecta is because the Venture X earns a base 2x miles per dollar spent. And let me tell you, it is nice freeing up that card slot in my wallet. Now, since the base earning rate on the SavorOne is 1x back, we want to make sure we're using the Venture X for any purchase that doesn't fit into an elevated spend category. It's not all sunshine and rainbows, however. The Capital One Duo is not going to get us higher than 2x back in categories like gas stations, gym memberships, rent, and utilities, but since this setup is all about simplicity, we have to make some sacrifices. But what about fees? What's this setup going to cost me every year? And am I going to be able to go on international travel without getting hit with 3% foreign transaction fees? Well, the Venture X has a pretty significant annual fee of $395, and we'll get into why it's worth actually paying this yearly fee in just a minute. But the thing you want to be mindful of here is the $395 fee will be applied to your statement pretty much immediately. So you'll actually owe this on your first payment due date. The SavorOne card, on the other hand, is completely free, no annual fee. So this one is easily justifiable. Now, the great thing about this setup, and why I think it may have the upper hand on the Amex trifecta for most people, is that it doesn't have foreign transaction fees. Since the Venture X and SavorOne have no foreign transaction fees, you can use these two cards for international travel, get your elevated rewards in multiple categories, and most importantly, be confident that your cards are actually going to be accepted in other countries. The problem with the Amex trifecta is that while the Platinum and Gold don't have foreign transaction fees, you're going to have a harder time actually using these cards. While Amex is working toward increasing international acceptance of their cards, it's currently still a good idea that you have a Visa or a MasterCard with you while traveling. The nice thing with the Capital One Duo is the Venture X is a Visa Infinite, while the SavorOne is a MasterCard. So you're pretty much covered. Now, oftentimes, credit cards will come with additional benefits that can really help us out, as long as we actually know about them. So what types of additional benefits can we expect from the Capital One Duo? Well, first and probably most importantly, the Venture X comes with a $300 annual travel credit that you'll automatically get when you book travel through Capital One's travel portal. This can be anything from hotels, flights, or rental cars. And this credit can be split up into multiple smaller charges, so you don't have to worry about making sure your single travel purchase is $300 or more. Additionally, with the Venture X, you'll be getting 10,000 bonus miles every year starting on your 1-year account anniversary. Now, since these miles are added to your account, you can actually hang on to them until you're ready to redeem. Now, these two perks, the $300 travel credit and 10,000 bonus miles, take the $395 annual fee and turn it into an effective annual fee of -$5, meaning Capital One is actually paying you to hold this card. But you really want to make sure you're taking advantage of that full annual travel credit each and every year. Now, the Venture X is also going to get you some additional perks, which include unlimited lounge access to Priority Pass, Plaza Premium, and Capital One lounges for you and 2 guests. But one of the really nice things about the Venture X is you can add authorized users absolutely free. My wife and I really value this aspect of the card, since not only is this our catch-all card, but now both of us can have full access to airport lounges if we're traveling separately. And for reference, the Amex Platinum charges $175 per year for up to 3 additional authorized users, while the Chase Sapphire Reserve charges $75 per authorized user. But with the Venture X, you're also going to be getting top-tier protections, since this is a Visa Infinite card. And these benefits include things like $800 worth of cell phone protection, trip cancellation and interruption, primary auto rental CDW, trip delay reimbursement, travel accident insurance, lost luggage reimbursement, extended warranty protection, purchase security, and return protection. The TLDR on this is it's comforting traveling and purchasing things with this card, knowing I'm going to be covered in case things go sideways. Now, one thing you must be aware of is the primary auto rental CDW generally will not cover peer-to-peer car rental services like Turo, so just be mindful of that. The Venture X also includes a credit for global entry or TSA PreCheck, which is valued up to $100 every 4 years and is only good for 1 reimbursement per account. But the nice thing is, let's say you already have global entry through another credit card, you can actually take advantage of this global entry credit for your Venture X authorized user so that the credit doesn't go to waste. Also, your Venture X comes with Hertz President Circle status, which is going to get you additional benefits like being able to skip the counter, adding an additional driver for free, and getting car upgrades. But the real pro tip with this benefit is that other rental car companies will oftentimes match status with each other. This means you can go over to Enterprise, Avis, and other car rental companies and say, hey, I have Hertz President Circle status. And they'll potentially say, okay, well, we're going to upgrade you to our elite status as well. Now, the SavorOne also provides some of these additional benefits like extended warranty and travel accident insurance, but I don't really care as much about the protections on this particular card. This is because as part of the Capital One Duo, this card will primarily be used for things that I'm not really concerned about getting damaged or stolen. Things like groceries, dining and takeout, and entertainment. And another benefit these cards offer is one that I have a love-hate relationship with, and that's Capital One Offers. And this is not to be confused with Capital One Shopping, which is a shopping portal that's available to everyone. Capital One Offers is only available to Capital One cardholders, and it's a service where you're gonna get a certain percentage or a certain dollar figure back as a statement credit when you shop at particular retailers through your Capital One offer link. The good is that there are literally hundreds hundreds of different offers you can browse through. And Capital One even gives you a search bar if you're looking for a particular retailer. The thing I don't particularly care for is that you can't stack these offers with Rakuten or other shopping services. That, and you must use Capital One offers online. There's no option to add the offer to your card and make a purchase in store like you can with some Amex and Chase offers. In fact, there's a disclaimer in Capital One offers that says use of other coupons, cashback, or promotional websites after selecting an offer and before making a purchase will invalidate your offer. Another downside to these offers is they can take up to 3 billing cycles to give you your statement credit. However, Capital One does have a way for you to check your shopping trip status, which you can see I personally have 2 completed trips which have been credited to me, and I have 2 pending shopping trips. Now, ultimately, I think it's great having all these additional opportunities for cash back, but I just wanted to be transparent with you and share some of the things that I think Amex and Chase may be doing a better job at. But we all know a lot of the value from these credit cards comes when you first sign up, in the form of a welcome offer. So Josh, what kind of welcome offer am I gonna get with the Capital One Duo? Well, the welcome offers you'll get from these 2 cards are solid. I mean, you'll be walking away with about $1,000 worth of value. For the Venture X, the current offer on the table is to earn 75,000 miles when you spend $4,000 on purchases in the first 3 months. When you combine that with the base 2x mile earning rate from this card, you're talking about getting over 20 miles per dollar spent on the first 4K of spend. As for the SavorOne, the current welcome bonus is $200 back once you spend $500 within the first 3 months. I really like this bonus since it has a low spend requirement and also for the fact that it's given to you in the form of rewards. And we'll talk about redeeming these rewards in a couple minutes. But the SavorOne also comes with an intro 0% APR for 15 months on purchases and balance transfers. Be mindful that balance transfers will have a 3% fee tacked onto them if you decide to take advantage of this. Now, before we get into redemption methods, one thing you need to be aware of is that the SavorOne card is a cashback card which you can redeem for 1 cent per point. But you can actually transfer these Capital One rewards to your Venture X if you're interested in pooling them together to potentially get more value. So now you're at the point where you saved up a bunch of rewards. You cash them out. Do you use them for travel? Do you use them to buy things on Amazon? Well, how you redeem your miles is just as important as how you're actually earning them. So personally, I'd be looking to only redeem my Capital One miles if I can get at least 1 cent per mile for them. Unfortunately, there's a few options available that will get you less value than this, and I want to briefly cover them so that you don't screw yourself out of money. And Capital One is sitting out there hoping you choose the lower value options because it means more money in their pockets. We don't want that. The absolute worst way to redeem your Capital One miles, the way that I want you to avoid at all costs, is to redeem them for cash. This method is going to get you a measly 0.5 cent per mile valuation. By going this route, you're effectively getting half the value you could be getting from the other redemption options available. If you redeem your miles for gift cards, I'm seeing most of the gift card options paying out 0.8 cents per mile, with some paying out 1 cent per mile. Not a great option in my opinion. Now, redeeming your miles for Amazon purchases or PayPal are 2 more redemption options I'd avoid, as they only get you 0.8 cents per mile. Now, you can also redeem your miles to purchase travel through the portal, which will get you 1 cent per mile, but I'd still avoid going this route since you aren't going to be earning the 5x or 10x miles you'd otherwise be getting from booking this travel. I'm sure you've heard that transferring your miles out to Capital One's travel partners is a way to squeeze the most value out of your miles. And yes, this is true. In fact, sometimes you can get far more than 1 cent per mile with this method. But the problem with this method is it's going to take some time and effort figuring out which partner to go with in order to get a good deal. And if you're not looking to spend that time and energy to get more value out of your miles, then this next redemption method is one that's going to get you a flat 1 cent per mile, and it's super easy to do. This redemption method is to cover travel purchases. Capital One allows you to redeem your miles at a 1 cent per mile valuation to essentially erase any purchase that codes as travel. The only caveat is the travel purchase must have posted to your account no more than 90 days prior to using your miles to erase it. As we can see here, the Verbo purchase I made on February 5th is eligible to be erased since it's within that 90-day period. And we can also see the purchase was for $583.65, and I'll need 58,365 miles to cover the purchase. And this comes out to a flat 1 cent per mile valuation. Now, the option I'm personally going with is transferring miles out to Capital One's travel partners because this method is going to get me the most value for my miles. Now, what about eligibility? What do you want your credit profile to look like before applying for these cards? Well, Capital One approvals seem to be all over the place, and people with seemingly good credit are sometimes sometimes denied for their cards. As a credit card issuer, Capital One tends to be a little inquiry sensitive, especially for inquiries within the last 6 months. I recently applied and was approved for the Venture X on my first try, and I didn't have any inquiries within the prior 12 months. Now, I'm certainly not saying you need to follow in my footsteps, but I definitely considered limiting my inquiries for a few months before applying for a Capital One credit card. The nice thing is there's a couple helpful features that Capital One actually gives us, which can help us decide whether or not we're ready to apply for one of their credit cards. If we look at the Venture X and SavorOne on Capital One's website, we'll see that Capital One comes right out and says, these cards are for people with excellent credit. And the nice thing here is Capital One actually gives us a handy description of what they consider to be excellent credit. Their definition of excellent credit is if you can say, I've never declared bankruptcy or defaulted on a loan, I haven't been more than 60 days late on any credit card, medical bill, or loan in the last year, I've had a loan or credit card for 3 years or more with a credit limit above $5,000. Since the lowest credit limit for the Venture X is $10,000, they want to make sure you can responsibly handle a large amount of available credit. Another way we can check if we're ready to apply for a Capital One card is to take advantage of their pre-approval tool. I highly recommend checking this tool prior to applying, especially since it will have zero impact on your credit as it's just a soft pull. Now, for some reason, Capital One does not include the Venture X in the pre-approval tool, but they do include the Venture, which if you're pre-approved for that, there's a decent chance you'll be approved for the Venture X. And of course, the SavorOne is also included in the pre-approval tool as well. Now, Capital One has a rule in place that may or may not still apply today, but I suggest erring on the side of caution here. The rule is that Capital One will only approve you for one new credit card every 6 months. So if you open the SavorOne card, you'll want to wait at least 6 months until you apply for the Venture X, or any other Capital One card for that matter. As far as credit scores required to be approved for the Capital One Duo, well, Capital One seems to be all over the place with no consistent requirement based on your score. But if I were applying for these cards, I'd want to have a score that falls within the good to excellent range. Probably at least a 700 FICO score. But again, it's really all over the place, so it's certainly not an easy question to answer. And if you do want to see how my Venture X application went, check out this video. Thanks for watching. Peace.